Chapter 94 to 96. Even though Shirou didn't get any information from the executors, there was no need to be concerned. Their enemies were merely dead apostles, after all. And among the dead apostles, the one that posed the biggest threat to Shirou was probably primate murder. But there was no need to worry. According to a rule in the Nasuverse, Tsukihime can exist without fate, and vice versa. In the world of fate, the dead are all weakened, and the entity known as primate murder was believed to still be held by Merlin in the form of foe. So even if any dead apostles were to come to Fuyuki City, there was no need to worry. Shirou had come this far, and he was now the second tallest person in the city. He was confident in his abilities to handle any situation that may arise. But it was better to handle any potential problems in the dark, as the city had already endured so much chaos and destruction and couldn't withstand any more. When he returned home, his mother instinctively asked about the tutoring session at the teacher's house. Shirou simply nodded and said that it went well. After washing his face in the bathroom, he looked at himself in the mirror. The first thing you would notice was his eyes, which seemed to be ablaze, and then other features, such as his black, unkempt hair that brushed against his cheek, and a gentle expression that radiated a strange warmth that blended youth and maturity. Despite his young age, he gave off the aura of an experienced veteran. Ever since he accepted all the world's evil, Shirou's hair turned jet black, a reflection of the evil he had embraced. At first, his parents were uneasy with the change, but they soon came to accept it, knowing that dyeing Shirou's hair would not be good for his health. At dinner time, Mr. Fujimaru, who rarely stayed late at work, would always come home on time. During dinner, he turned to Shirou and said, "I have a project I need to rush this weekend, Shirou. I won't be able to make it to your school's sports day. Make sure you work hard on the pole vault." "I know." Shirou nodded. He was not like other children. He didn't need someone to attend his school sports festival. "By the way," Mr. Fujimaru continued, "your birthday is coming up next Friday. Is there anything special you would like as a present? I'll buy you anything within reason." "I don't need anything, Dad," Shirou replied with a warm smile. "As long as you're healthy and work is going well, that's all the gift I could ever ask for." Mr. Fujimaru looked into his son's bright eyes and felt a sudden rush of emotion. He said, "You truly are a good child. What about me?" Mrs. Fujimaru Chiyo pointed to herself, with a look that indicated she was ready to pounce if she wasn't satisfied. "As long as Mom doesn't make me watch any sappy dramas, that'll be the best birthday gift for me," Shirou said. Mrs. Fujimaru pouted, and she playfully hit Shirou on the head. "Ow, don't hit my head. It'll make me dumb," Shirou complained. But then Shirou's tone shifted, and his gaze landed on Sakura, who was sitting at the table feeling a bit out of place. He smiled gently and said, "I'm looking forward to the birthday surprise from Sakura, though." "Eh?" Sakura blushed and stammered after a moment. I haven't prepared anything yet." Everyone at the table erupted in laughter. The atmosphere was filled with cheer. That night, Shirou sat at his desk and began to make a list of his life plan. His dream of becoming wealthy was still very much alive, and he was determined to make it a reality. It was a goal that Shirou couldn't afford to give up on. He reasoned that if the Nasuverse was based on the real world, then some historical events shouldn't change. For instance, the world's shift into the era of the internet economy. He thought about the explosion of Bitcoin and the listing of companies like Tencent and Alibaba, and realized that even if one doesn't know how to run a company, as long as they ride the tide of the times, they can reap the benefits and make a lot of money. With this money, he planned to buy real estate to create a stable source of income and preserve his wealth, while saving the rest in a bank and investing in financial products. The interest alone would be enough for Shirou to live on comfortably for the rest of his life. Satisfied with his plan, he eagerly jotted down his thoughts and ideas. On the second afternoon, Shirou kept his promise and took Ilya for a walk around Fuyuki City. However, due to the ongoing construction in Miyama Town, they ended up exploring the neighboring Shinto town instead. The only noteworthy landmark in Shinto was the towering statue of Ultra 7. Despite the lack of attractions, Ilya took diligent notes in her notebook, preserving her memories of the places she visited. "Why do you write down everything?" Shirou asked curiously. Ilya beamed at him and replied, "So I don't forget these precious memories." As the sun began to dip behind the western mountains, their tour of the city drew to a close. However, Ilya was still eager to explore Miyama and enthusiastically pulled Shirou along with her. He couldn't help but smile as he followed her bounding ahead, brimming with energy and vitality. Spending time with lively children was something he truly enjoyed. Although the town of Miyama was largely unimpressive due to its abundance of construction sites, Ilya remained wide-eyed as she took in her surroundings and jotted down her observations in her notebook. In consideration of the non-human and executors that inhabited the newly built church, Shirou decided to take Ilya to Ryudu Temple instead. As they made their ascent up the mountain, Ilya struggled to keep up and eventually leaned against a tree, breathing heavily. Sensing her exhaustion, Shirou picked her up and spread his large black wings, carrying her the rest of the way to Ryudu Temple as he flew. "Big brother, are you an angel?" Ilya asked in wonder. Shirou simply smiled and replied, "Do you think I am?" "Yes," Ilya nodded eagerly, pointing to his large black wings. "They're really pretty." "Thank you," he said, a hint of delight in his voice. "You're the first one to compliment them on their beauty. It makes them happy." The mud on his wings formed a black hand, reaching out and gently patting Ilya's head before withdrawing back. She giggled, a smile spreading across her face. After landing at Ryudu Temple, Shirou tucked away his black wings as he carried Ilya. The monk who was sweeping in front of the temple barely gave Shirou a second look, maintaining a tranquil expression as he continued his chore, seemingly unaffected by Shirou's imposing black wings. This peaceful demeanor was also shared by the other monks within the temple. Kiritsugu said that both Buddha and God are enlightened beings, and if you make a wish to them, your wish might come true, Ilya said, looking up at the Buddha statue in the main hall with wonder in her eyes. Making a wish to a Buddha statue is the same as making a wish to that person, Shirou explained. "Are you talking about the Grail?" Ilya asked with curiosity. Shirou smiled mysteriously. "Not exactly." He then led Ilya to a guest room inside Ryudu Temple. At a glance, he saw the Enlightened One sitting in meditation on the lotus platform, with Ryudu Issei, the son of the head priest of Ryudu Temple, writing his homework beside him. As the door opened, Issei looked up and greeted him. "Shirou-kun, you're here to see the master again? It's a shame that he's still meditating today." "I know," Shirou said with a nod, his gaze settling on the Enlightened One, who sat in peaceful meditation. After the Holy Grail War, he made several visits to the Enlightened One. Despite his efforts, the meditation master remained silent, never acknowledging Shirou's presence or leaving any word behind. However, these repeated visits led to an improvement in his relationship with the Ryudu Temple. Shirou was filled with curiosity about why the Enlightened One would choose to reside at the Ryudu Temple. He also discovered that the master had been living there for several years. The Enlightened One was the tallest person in Fuyuki City, and Shirou couldn't imagine a scenario in which he would reach the top, even if the sky fell. Furthermore, even if the master descended as a servant, he was one of the Nasuverse's strongest beings, possessing the innate skill, enlightenment of the sacred fig, which was even more abnormal than Shirou's evil flower of freedom. With his highest level of anti-purge defense, the Enlightened One could easily defend against even world-end level attacks. Time and space meant nothing to him, and he was free to come and go as he pleased, unaffected by the counterforce. Despite these facts, the Enlightened One never spoke directly to Shirou and never even looked in his direction. No matter what Shirou said or did, including attempting to tickle the master with poison mushrooms, the Enlightened One remained in a meditative state with his eyes closed, never responding to his efforts. This lack of response from the Enlightened One weighed heavily on Shirou. He wondered if the appearance of the Enlightened One in Fuyuki City meant that other messiahs would also appear. Despite his knowledge of Shakyamuni, Shirou was uncertain about the other messiahs. He realized that thinking too much about it was only causing him unnecessary stress. "Ilya, making a wish to this uncle is even more potent than praying to a Buddha statue," Shirou said. Ilya gazed at the Enlightened One as she closed her eyes, appearing to make a wish of her own. At that moment, Issei approached with a pink towel and offered it to Shirou. "You must be tired from climbing the mountain, Shirou. Here, use this to wipe away your sweat. I heard you like pink, so I got this just for you." "Thank you, but I'm not sweating," Actually, I've been wondering who started the rumor that I like pink, Shirou asked, as it was something that had been bothering him. Everyone says that, Issei replied. In any case, can you help me clear things up if you hear anyone spreading this rumor again? Shirou asked, sounding helpless. Yes, I'll do my best, Issei replied, looking away from Shirou's bright eyes before glancing back at him a few moments later. I made a wish, Ilya exclaimed as she opened her eyes. Shirou walked over to her and asked, What did you wish for, Ilya? Hey, I'm not telling, brother. Ilya playfully bounced away. Shirou started to follow her but was stopped by Issei. Shirou, don't forget about pole vaulting for the sports festival this weekend. Do your best, okay? You can count on me, he confidently replied, fist pumped with determination. On April 9th, 1994, Shirou kept his promise to Ilya and took her for a walk. As they strolled, Ilya was busy doodling in her notebook, capturing every experience they had in Fuyuki City. Suddenly, a voice caught Shirou's attention. He turned to see Shinji, a blue-haired boy, sitting on a red bench and waving at him from the bed of a small truck. In the driver's seat was a young man with a similar appearance, holding a cheap cigarette in his mouth and giving off the impression of a greasy, middle-aged uncle. The back of the truck was surrounded by boxes of snacks, including bubble gum and chips. Shinji put down his textbook and climbed out of the truck, walking towards Shirou. Hey, Shinji, how's it going? Shirou greeted him with a nod, then asked, So, what's going on with your family's store? Nah, nothing's happening with the store, Shinji replied, shaking his head. Why do you ask? Just curious, Shirou said with a shrug, gesturing towards the truck. What's with the truck then? Don't you remember? Tomorrow's the school sports festival. There's bound to be a lot of people, including parents, coming to watch. And where there are a lot of people, there's a market. That's why I suggested to my dad that we should move our goods close to the school and set up shop at the entrance gate, Shinji explained. Shinji then handed Shirou a pink towel. This one's for you. Shirou noticed the familiar style of the towel and asked, Did you spread the rumor that I like pink? Shinji felt embarrassed and chuckled awkwardly, avoiding eye contact with Shirou. Ha ha ha, Shirou sighed. You really have a knack for business, don't you? Shinji's gaze then fell on Ilya. And who might this be? I'm Ilyasviel von Einsburn, but you can call me Ilya. Nice to meet you, big brother. Ilya introduced herself with a smile. Shinji reached into his pocket and took out 2 pieces of candy. These are our homemade milk candies. They're really good. Here you go, Ilya. Thank you, big brother. Ilya gratefully accepted the candies. No need to thank me. Just in case someone asks where you got the candy from later, you can tell them you bought it from the Matu convenience store located at 70 on 3rd East Commercial Street in Shinto. And don't forget our order hotline. It's 031-5977665. Shirou couldn't help but interrupt. Hey, Shinji, don't advertise here. Shinji looked embarrassed as he rubbed the back of his head. Oh, sorry, I just got carried away. Shinji, the young man driving the truck, called out. I have to go. My dad needs me. I still have to memorize 100 words, an article, do some deliveries, and post some ads. I have a lot on my plate today. See you later, Shirou. Come play at my place sometime. And don't forget to treat me to your mom's goat milk dessert, Shinji said, as he waved goodbye to Shirou. As he watched the Matu father and son leave, Shirou couldn't help but smile. The Fourth Holy Grail War brought a lot of destruction, including the destruction of Miyama's old town. But it also brought some positive changes. Due to the devastating effects of the war, all of Miyama Town's old infrastructure was completely destroyed, providing an opportunity for the city to be rebuilt and modernized. Shirou's actions during the war also helped to bring hope back to the people, who had previously lost all hope. Some individuals who were once doomed to die survived and found new paths in life. Shinji and his father, Byakuya, were among them. Ilya continued to document in her notes. April 9th, Friday, received my 3rd gift. A big brother named Shinji with seaweed hair gave me 2 pieces of candy. As Shirou and Ilya walked to their meeting place with Kiritsugu, they could hear 2 voices arguing with each other. Why would Grandma agree to pair us up? Do you think I'm happy about going to Finland? If it weren't for Dad forcing me, I wouldn't go at all. You blonde drill hair. What? What did you call me? Drill hair? You have no manners at all. Shirou's ears were met with a horrible sound, and he turned to see what was going on. He saw Rin in the midst of an argument with a blonde girl, surrounded by a group of butler-clad men. Despite the spectacle being a source of entertainment for onlookers, they didn't dare to linger due to the intimidating presence of the butlers. "Oh, it's the big sister who gave me the spiritual compensation," Ilya exclaimed, pointing at the blonde girl. The blonde girl, upon noticing Ilya, stiffened and pointed at her, saying, How did you get here?" "Oh, spiritual compensation? What's this about, Luvia Gilita Edelfelt?" Rin asked, squinting her eyes. "What spiritual compensation? I don't know anything about that. Don't make false accusations." Luvia panicked. "Hey, I remember it clearly," Ilya countered, opening her notebook. "April 5th, Tuesday. Big sister's car almost hit me. Then she got out and gave me the spiritual compensation." "Ho, ho, ho." Rin's eyes narrowed. "That was just an accident, I tell you. Auguste was driving perfectly fine. That girl was the one who walked into the road without looking," Luvia exclaimed, pointing a finger at Shirou. "And you, commoner over there, weren't you there too? Say something." Rin's eyes also landed on Shirou. "Oh, look who's here, the black-hearted Fujimaru. It seems my presence is a bit low today, Rin," Shirou replied with a smile. Rin hugged herself and backed up a couple of steps, shivering. "I've told you before, don't call me by my name. It gives me the creeps," Rin said with feigned disgust. "Okay, Tosaka Repeater? That'll do." Rin nodded. "Pfft, Tosaka Repeater," Luvia laughed. "Do you have any objections?" Rin waved her fist and then looked at Ilya, teasingly saying, "Spiritual compensation? Golden drill hair? Shut up! Don't call me drill hair," Luvia hissed, her teeth clenched tight. She then cast a quick glance at Ilya and Shirou, realizing that they were not alone. She quickly composed herself and regained her noble demeanor. She looked at Shirou and asked, "Is your name really Black-Hearted Fujimaru?" "No, it's Fujimaru Shirou," Shirou corrected her. "Shirou Fujimaru?" Luvia repeated. "Yes, Shirou," he confirmed. "Oh, the pronunciation of this Japanese name is so strange," Luvia commented before turning to Rin. Her elegance disappeared, and she said, "Anyway, finish your dropout procedures quickly and come to Finland with me, my little sister." Luvia emphasized the word little sister. Rin raised an eyebrow. "What a joke. Do you really think you're older than me?" "I was born on January 3rd, Luvia announced. "I've looked up your details. You were born on February 3rd. Sorry, but I'm a month older. When we become twins, you have to address me as elder sister." Rin gritted her teeth. How detestable. "I lost this one." Shirou. "Hey, Fujimaru!" Rin yelled, her finger pointing at Shirou. "You'd better be ready tomorrow. Don't let us beat you in pole vaulting and then cry about it." "Yeah, got it," he responded with a nod. Rin huffed and rolled her eyes. "Ugh, you're no fun. I can't even talk to you anymore." With that, she took Luvia by the arm and stormed off. Ilya observed the exchange, taking notes. Later, Shirou led Ilya to the designated meeting place with Kiritsugu. To his surprise, he found not only Kiritsugu but also Irisville, two white-haired maids, and a black car. Behind the wheel was Maya Hisao. "Mommy!" Ilya exclaimed, her face lighting up as she ran towards Irisville, who scooped her up into her arms. Irisville looked at Shirou, giving him a gentle nod. "Castor, I must thank you for taking Ilya around Fuyuki City." "No need to be polite," Shirou replied, shaking his head and smiling. "And now that the Holy Grail War is over, please call me Fujimaru Shirou, not Castor." "All right," Irisville said. Irisville, Ilya, and the two maids sat in the car. Ilya leaned out the window and waved at Shirou, a pure and sweet smile on her face. "Big brother, thank you for giving me so many wonderful memories. Goodbye." Shirou waved back, saying, "Goodbye." Ilya's smile remained as she retreated back into the car. "Next time, I definitely want to see your pole vaulting," she called out to him. Shirou nodded. As the car drove away, Kiritsugu smoked in silence, watching it leave. Shirou turned to Kiritsugu and posed his question. "So, it will take roughly 7 years to complete?" "Correct, about 7 years," Kiritsugu affirmed. Shirou pressed on. "What are the chances that the child will forget her past?" "About 70%, Kiritsugu replied. "Her soul is still young, and despite the aid of the puppet maker and the Grail crystal you provided, the probability of being reborn as a human and forgetting everything is over 70%. We did not keep this from her." Shirou let out a heavy sigh. No wonder she was so adamant about documenting everything. She must have been terrified of losing her memories. He turned to Kiritsugu. "I don't quite understand why you're staying behind. Why don't you accompany them to the puppet maker? 7 years is a long time to be alone. Won't you feel lonely?" "No," Kiritsugu replied firmly. Even if they're not physically present, they're always with me, in my heart. Moreover, the puppet maker has no desire to see me. Even if I were to use my Magic Crest to seek her out, she would refuse to meet with me. Is that so? Shirou watched as the vehicle drove off into the distance. He understood that the homunculi produced by the Einsburn family, such as Irisveal and Ilya, had relatively short lifespans due to their purpose as vessels for the Holy Grail. The only way to extend their lives was by reincarnating them as humans. However, the process of transforming non-humans into humans was an arduous task, even for the renowned puppet maker. With the aid of the Grail Crystal, however, it could be done. Given our history, I suppose I should be grateful that you haven't killed me yet. You have no obligation to provide me with the Grail Crystal, Shirou responded coolly. I'm not helping you. It's the Grail Crystal that's aiding you, before turning and walking away. Holy Maiden of Winter, Kiritsugu muttered under his breath before also departing. In the back seat of the car, Irisveal turned to Ilya and asked, "Did you manage to find any happy memories?" Ilya nodded enthusiastically. On April 5th, I received my first and second gifts. The following day, Kiritsugu took me to a cafe. On April 7th, we enjoyed a child-set meal together. On April 8th, Big Brother took me to the Ryudu Temple to make a wish. And on April 9th, I received my third gift. Oh, I almost forgot. I made a wish to that green-haired uncle, asking to never forget any of these wonderful moments. Ilya beamed with a sunny smile as she clutched her notebook tightly. These are all my favorite memories. As the black car journeyed on, it gradually disappeared into the horizon. As the sun sank behind the western hills, the once vibrant surroundings grew dim, and the only source of illumination came from the flickering streetlights. Shirou, heading home, opted for a less crowded route with fewer people. Tomorrow, the school will be holding its annual sports festival, and Shirou's pole vaulting event is set for 3 p.m. during the 7th competition. He has heard rumors of a meme circulating in the Nasuverse about his pole vaulting being broadcasted worldwide by Alaya, but he knows deep down that it's just a fantasy. Shirou was no archer. He was Fujimaru Shirou, with his own set of karma to resolve. So he decided to make tomorrow's pole vaulting as tame as possible, not wanting to intimidate the other children in case more serious students decided to participate. As these thoughts filled his mind, Shirou made his way home. But the next moment, a sudden pain in his abdomen caused him to double over, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Shrip! Squelch! Glancing down, he saw a hand with blood, piercing through his abdomen from behind. With a crack, the hand was pulled from Shirou's back. He fell to the ground with a thud, staring up at the figure standing behind him. It was a vision of otherworldly beauty that sent shivers down the spine of all who beheld her. She was a girl with hair as blonde as the sun, clad in a pristine white long-sleeved shirt and a flowing purple skirt that seemed to ripple like a river in the wind. Her golden locks whipped around her like the tendrils of a crazed demon, as if possessed by some dark force. But it was her eyes that truly set her apart, pools of crimson that glinted with a sinister, almost otherworldly light. Raw! The voice was filled with killing intent, as if it had come straight from the depths of hell. Confusion overwhelmed Shirou. How did this person appear out of nowhere? Who was she? As he tried to make sense of the situation, it dawned on him with a jolt that the girl in front of him was none other than the vampire princess, Archaeid. But what was the reason for her sudden appearance? What could have brought her to this place? These questions echoed relentlessly in Shirou's mind as he lay on the ground, gazing up at her with a mixture of shock and confusion. Roa! The air was filled with a voice dripping with malice, as if it had been summoned straight from the depths of hell. Shirou's body radiated evil energy as he brought his two massive, jagged arms crashing down towards Archaeid. However, in the next instant, two similar giant hands mysteriously appeared on either side of Archaeid, blocking Shirou's attack. Marble phantasm, it's Archaeid, all right. As black mud churned in his belly, he extended a huge hand and propelled himself into the sky, his back sprouting two massive black wings that carried him higher into the clouds. As he soared, the mud in his belly flowed, slowly mending the stab wound and healing his body. Don't even think about getting away. Archaeid also grew wings, taking flight and pursuing Shirou in an attempt to kill him. Shirou projected 56 swords, launching them at Archaeid. But Archaeid immediately countered by manifesting an equal number of swords, shooting them back at him. Shirou was speechless. He now understood the feeling Gilgamesh must have had when they faced off against each other. Archaeid Brunestud, also known as the White Princess, was a prominent figure in the world of Tsukihime. She possessed the power of Marble Phantasm, one of the top abilities in the Nasuverse, which allowed her to materialize anything she could imagine through the power of her mind. When she came face to face with Shirou's black hands, she utilized the Marble Phantasm to create a massive hand that blocked his attack and duplicated his projection swords. The origin of the world was intricately tied to Archaeid's story. Approximately 14,000 years ago, a comet known as the Wandering Star visited the Milky Way and cast 3 anti-cells into the solar system. One of these 3 anti-cells was Safar, who descended to Earth and wreaked havoc, ultimately destroying most of mankind's earliest civilizations, including Atlantis, in an event that would be remembered as the Leucosmachia. However, Safar was eventually killed by the wielder of the Holy Sword. Even so, Safar had successfully burned to ash 80% of the planet's surface, not only killing most of the plants, animals, and humans, but even the gods themselves. The gods saw that the planet was breaking away from nature and that humans would soon take control of the world. In order to coexist with humans and maintain control over them, the gods created the Wedge of Heaven, and Gilgamesh was born, designed as king and the Wedge of Heaven to connect the rising humans and the fading gods. However, Gilgamesh rebelled against the gods and eventually chose to side with humans, betraying the gods and causing the separation of humans and gods. This led to the inevitable destruction of the Age of Gods and marked the beginning of the Age of Man. The planet also broke free from the control of nature, and mystery began to fade. 3,000 years ago, after the death of King Solomon, the rate of mystery's decline accelerated and the Age of Gods came to a close. By the 1st century AD, the Age of Gods on the continent had virtually disappeared. By the 5th century AD, after the fall of King Arthur, the remaining mystery left by the gods was extinct, and most phantasmal species choose to go into hiding. As the power of humanity continued to grow, it was precisely what the planet's consciousness, Gaia, had feared before the Age of Gods, but it was powerless to solve the problem. Brunestud the Crimson Moon had a sinister plan. He made a deal with Gaia, tricking her into allowing him to live on Earth in exchange for protection against human corruption. With crimson and gentle eyes, he made a false promise to Gaia. "I will protect the Earth in place of your inability to act." With this promise, Brunestud descended from the moon to the Earth. When the need arose, Gaia created the true ancestors based on Brunestud. They served as a natural protective system for the Earth and were Gaia's direct means of defense against humanity. But she was unaware of Brunestud's true intentions of ruling the Earth. When she eventually discovered Brunestud's plans, the outcome was not favorable for him. Brunestud was aware that his life was quickly coming to an end due to the numerous enemies he had made, as his world-corrosive will defied both Gaia and Alaya. In an effort to ensure his legacy lived on, he attempted to create true ancestors of equal purity to himself as his successors. However, all of his attempts proved to be unsuccessful. Thus, Brunestud took it upon himself to teach the true ancestors how to create more of their kind. In 300 AD, Brunestud met his downfall at the hands of Kishore Zelrech Schweinorg, who wielded the second magic. Despite his immense power, Brunestud was unable to anticipate being defeated by a human. He had attempted to pull the moon towards Earth, but Zelrech's magic pushed it back, preventing any harm to the planet. Brunestud realized too late the true power of magic, which operates as a rule outside of the rules. In the 12th century, the true ancestors, deemed failures by Brunestud, succeeded where he had failed by creating Archaeid. She possessed power that rivaled Brunestud's and had the ability to draw power and information from Gaia. She's truly the White Princess and one of the powerhouses in the Nasuverse. However, approximately 800 years ago, Roa, the Serpent of Akasha and founder of the burial agency of the Holy Church, lured Archaeid into drinking his blood, completing his method of infinite reincarnation. This resulted in Archaeid's mental collapse and caused her to kill all of the true ancestors who created her. To suppress her blood-sucking impulses, she had to use more than 70% of her power, but even then, she remained one of the powerhouses in the Nasuverse. Since then, whenever Roa reincarnates, Arquaid appears and directly accesses information from Gaia to chase and kill the reincarnated Roa. But the problem was, Arquaid, you've got it wrong. I'm not Roa. Shirou spoke up, trying to make himself heard over Arquaid's accusations. Don't try to deceive me, she retorted, fixing her gaze on Shirou as she materialized a sword. You used that same lie during the 12th reincarnation. Without further warning, she lunged forward to attack. Shirou projected a shield to block the attack and let out a sigh. Your heart is clouded by hatred. He knew that he couldn't face Arquaid head-on. If he still had the immense magical energy from the Fourth Holy Grail War, he might have tried. But with his current level of magical energy, he stood no chance against her. Even with only 30% of her strength, Arquaid was a formidable opponent. And if she were to unleash her full vampire capability, along with the support of Gaia, Shirou was guaranteed to lose. Shirou had always believed in the philosophy of helping others to the best of his ability, passing on the flame he had received from the great hero and paving the way to freedom for those in need. But now, with Arquaid relentlessly pursuing him as the reincarnation of Roa, her eyes brimming with hatred and her power surpassing his own, he was left questioning how he could ever continue to uphold his beliefs. No matter how noble one's thoughts or how powerful their language, they were powerless until they could subdue their opponent. Shirou quickly transformed the mud behind him into a magical energy propulsion device, accelerating his flight. Don't even think of getting away, Arquaid cried out, as she manifested her own magical energy propulsion device and gave chase. Shirou said nothing as he fixed his gaze on the pursuing Arquaid. He began to understand what Gilgamesh must have felt, facing an opponent who was a master of imitation with abilities far surpassing his own. The opponent was a queen of plagiarism, a counterfeiter beyond compare. He chose not to engage in a confrontation with Arquaid, and instead made a beeline for Ryudu Temple. Without a word, he burst into the room where the Enlightened One was meditating and took refuge behind him, grabbing the master with both hands and using him as a shield. To handle such a powerhouse, he would have to use a powerhouse of his own. Ryudu Issei, who was writing homework beside the master, looked up in surprise as Shirou took cover. Shirou, what's going on? Nothing. Just keep writing your homework. Oh, Issei went back to his homework. Shirou peered out into the world and saw Arquaid slowly walking towards him, emanating killing intent. The Buddhist monks at Ryudu Temple glanced up briefly before lowering their heads to resume their sweeping. Come out, Roa, Arquaid glared at Shirou. She's truly the White Princess. Despite her heart overflowing with hatred and anger, she didn't harm the innocent. Shirou peered out from behind the Enlightened One, his voice filled with hopelessness. You've got the wrong person. I'm not the reincarnation of Roa. He didn't even get to finish his sentence before Arquaid shot a blood-red beam of cold light at him. Shirou quickly dodged back behind the master. A warm, golden light emanated from the master's body, effortlessly dissolving Arquaid's blood claws. Shirou let out a sigh of relief. The fact that the master was continuing his meditation, unaware of and uninterested in what was happening around him, only made him more admirable. There was nothing better than using this lazy, carefree monk as a shield. Shirou stepped out from behind the Enlightened One and pointed at him, saying, Take a good look, Arquaid. I'm not Roa, he is.